The year is 1492. After sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean for over a month, the 3 ships of the small Spanish fleet are running dangerously low on food supplies and fresh water. Storms have battered the vessels, and many crew members have fallen ill with scurvy. Hope is beginning to dwindle that this voyage will be any more successful than previous attempts at reaching Asia by going west. But then, just when all hope seems lost, land appears on the horizon. The ships are turned around and set toward the newfound land, and on October 12th, they drop anchor in a shallow, sandy cove on an island. Soon, men are wading ashore, dragging a cross with them out of the ship's hold. They are the first Europeans to set foot here, but certainly won't be the last. This was the first voyage of Christopher Columbus, and although he never realized it, the course of history has just shifted on its axis. It's me. Welcome to my channel, where we bring you new videos every week on all aspects of the past. In today's episode, we look at the first voyage of Christopher Columbus. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video for our usual 2 ways that you can help us to keep bringing you these free videos. In September of 1492, the 3 ships of the small Spanish fleet were more than 60 days into their journey across the vast Atlantic Ocean. Food was running low, and those aboard were suffering from scurvy brought on by weeks without fresh fruits and vegetables. Many had become too sick to work, including some of the sailors who were manning the ship's rowboats and steering the vessels. Columbus, however, refused to turn back, despite pleas from his crew. He was sure that if he could just stay the course and keep heading west, he would eventually find land. This was because he believed that the world was much smaller than what geographers at the time had estimated. He also believed that by sailing west around Africa, he would reach the eastern coast of Asia, specifically the region known to Europeans as India. Here, he would find the riches he so desired, which would make him famous and secure his place in history. His route took him and his crew through the Grand Banks of Terra Nova, or Newfoundland, before heading south along the coast of North America. There, on October 12, 1492, after more than a month at sea, land was finally sighted, although it was not the India that Columbus had expected to see. When he first spotted the shoreline, he immediately ordered his ships to be turned around and headed towards it. Aboard the flagship Santa Maria, he wrote in his journal, on the 12th, at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we saw land with a shout of land. We ceased rowing, and each man began to give thanks to God and to the Virgin Mary and to Our Lady of the Consolation, beseeching her with one accord that we might attain the goal which we desired. I wished to give thanks to God in that place, and to kneel down and say a prayer. And in that instant the land wind struck so violently that I was almost torn from the foothold where I was, and with great difficulty I was able to avoid being sucked into the sea. When the ships reached the shore, longboats were lowered into the water and preparations were made for landing. Men, supplies, and equipment were loaded into the boats and they rowed towards the beach. On Columbus's orders, a cross was dragged ashore, planted firmly in the sand and raised to the sky. He named this place San Salvador, or Holy Savior, in honor of what he believed was the salvation that God had given him by allowing him to reach this land. Here he took possession of the island and the native inhabitants, there in the name of Spain. Columbus had just made history. Not only had he discovered land completely unknown to Europeans, but he had become the first European to set foot in the Americas in more than 1,000 years. The Vikings had established a settlement in Newfoundland around 500 years earlier, but it had been abandoned long before Columbus arrived. Columbus spent 3 days on the island exploring the coastline and searching for gold, precious gems, or other signs of wealth. While there, he encountered the native Lucian people. The Spaniards called them Indians because they believed that they had reached the East Indies. In his journal, Columbus described them as well-proportioned, with good faces, not very ugly nor as black as ink, but of a color between the two. They were all stark naked, save that some had a little loincloth which reached about the middle of their thighs. They were adorned with many ornaments of gold about their necks and on their ears, and they went all armed with bows and arrows. To the natives, Columbus and his crew were obviously foreigners. Their skin color was darker than most Europeans, and they were covered in sores from head to toe. Because of the lack of fresh fruits and vegetables, the crew's diet consisted mostly of salted meat, fish, and bread. The Spaniards probably appeared strange to the natives, but the meeting was peaceful and no hostilities occurred. Columbus reported that the natives did not seem to be afraid of the Europeans, and he believed that this was because they had no knowledge of what weapons the Europeans had. The Indians traded with the newcomers, offering them food in exchange for European goods. Some of the items Columbus and his crew gave them included red caps, bells, glass, beads, knives, bracelets, scissors, combs, cloths, and mirrors. But the exploration had not gone as planned. Columbus had hoped to find gold and other valuable resources on the island, but he found none. He also knew that he could not remain there since he had no provisions, and the ships were leaky and in need of repair. So on the 16th, he and his crew got back on the ships and sailed away. One of the ships, the Pinta, anchored off the coast to repair damages to its masts. As the repairs were made, Columbus and the rest of the crew left on the Nina to explore further west. After sailing around the island of Cuba, they found another island which Columbus named Hispaniola, the modern-day Dominican Republic, and Haiti. The two ships rejoined the next day, and together they continued on their journey westward. Their course took them past Jamaica and then northward along the coast of what is today the Bahamas. They stopped at several islands, and Columbus noted the presence of gold in the soil. He believed that this was a sign that he was close to the gold-rich lands of Asia. But again, his search for gold proved to be fruitless. By this time, the Santa Maria was in such poor condition that she was unable to continue the journey. And so on Christmas Day, 1492, Columbus ordered her to be beached on the island of Navidad. The men salvaged what they could from the wrecked ship and made camp on the beach while waiting for the Pinta and the Nina to return from their mission. These ships had been sent to explore further north to see if they could find a sea route to Asia. When they came back, the men from the wrecked Santa Maria were still on the island. With all the provisions from the wrecked ship, they prepared to sail back to Spain. They left behind 39 men under the command of Rodrigo de Triana to establish a settlement on the island. Before leaving, they built a fort to protect the men from attack by the natives. Then on January 4th, 1493, the two ships sailed away from the island. Columbus returned to Spain believing that he had discovered the eastern coast of Asia. Unfortunately, the navigational instruments used at the time were inaccurate, so he didn't realize that he had actually discovered a new continent. Upon his return to Spain, he was hailed as a hero. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella awarded him the Order of Santiago, a medal of gold, and a lifetime pension. Although he had not found the wealth that he had hoped for, he was a rich man for the rest of his life. Columbus made 3 more voyages to the Americas, but none of them proved to be any more successful than the first. He died believing that he had been proved wrong, that he had actually reached Asia. And that's our look at the first voyage of Christopher Columbus. Let me know what you think. Did you know that there was more to the story? What would you like to learn about next? As always, thank you for watching and supporting us. Bye.